and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and on the floor today, I've got Al Hagan. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We met through the sci-fi anthology of 2026, put together by S.A. Gibson. You got a copy too. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'll wave in the copy with this weird kind of Forbidden Planet landscape. The anthology has been coming out for several years, put together by S.A. Gibson. I had Steve on the podcast a few months ago. We talked about setting it up. He's a sci-fi writer in his own right. And every year he assembles talent in the field and showcases it through the anthology. How'd you get hooked up with Mr. Gibson?
I'm a member of the Facebook group there and saw it come up, and I said, hey, you know what? I've got a little story pretty much done. Let me finish that off and send it in. And Amber, what's her last name? Amber
Hell.
Editing. Yes, editing. She said it was tight, had one good suggestion, which I really liked, just switch a couple of things around, and they went with it.
I liked her. She had a few suggestions just to tidy mine up too. She's
good.
She cut out a nice little vignette I had that I could tell you about. You get a kick out of it with this importer fraud idea. But she felt that belongs in a novel, and already my story was kind of long. So I said, okay, but I thought it was very professionally done. And Steve's the scholar and a gentleman and has been doing it for years. So it's fun to participate. And that's how I got you. So I replied all to the thread of the Steve thank you, and I took advantage of his good graces to invite the writers. So I've got a few of you, and it's great to meet you through that networking opportunity.
Pretty cool, actually. You've got a wide variety of stories. I admit I haven't read them all. I like to read one story and let it sit for a while rather than just slam, 4 or 5 short stories together. It's kind of savor it like fine wine, So I haven't read them all, but it's a good mix, a wide variety of styles and different. Of course, science fiction is a very broad field.
I liked yours, which is the apocalypse is weird. We can talk about that. I liked your protagonist, Tommy, this tough chick living in Texas post super pandemic. So you got the Hexen virus wiped out 90% of humanity, which is really the foundation for your Hexen series, right? But you got 5 books now.
That 5 books. The 5th one comes out April 3rd.
April 3rd this year.
Yes, in
this
a week.
Is a launch party for you, Al.
There you go. That'll work.
Great. We've obviously gone through the COVID pandemic, and different people had different reactions to that, both in terms of what was real, what wasn't, how the government did and didn't respond, and it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, one way or another. So. Did you start going with the Hexen series after that, or were you already cooking with this idea of?
I was on it already. The first, I went back and looked, and November of 2018 was my first draft on the first book. So a year and a couple of months before anybody had ever heard of COVID. And once COVID came through, I think I threw in some things that were more. That we experienced with COVID. Like, for example, I'll say, yeah, they were wearing the old useless COVID masks.
Yeah, that's
get a little shot in.
Kind of fun and maudlin reference, right? But your contagion was way more deadly. I mean, people are still arguing about the mortality rate and how that impacted, and there were different target populations too for COVID. Like young people were pretty much immune. If you're middle-aged, if you were heavy set, you were higher risk. How we handled that pandemic is still being argued about. We clearly messed it up.
Yeah.
But yours is a rough one. COVID, by any estimate, maybe like 2%. 1%,
if you look,
but yours is 90%. That's pretty bad.
And I did that for a reason. But if you look at just the regular avian flu that comes out and is transmitted to humans, chiefly in Asia and Turkey and China and various other, the mortality rate of that is 60% as is. But the most they've infected has been about 300 or 400 people. But so it wouldn't take a whole lot to jack that up in a biolab to a deadlier, higher mortality rate. The problem is transmission. It's not that infectious.
That's
But
the thing, right, with these bugs. So you got super lethal ones that aren't
yeah,
very good at jumping human to human,
yeah, it
and you've
just
got
doesn't.
other ones with mild to no symptoms that are just virulently contagious. We
Yeah,
got a
if
real
you can.
problem when you combine both factors.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do, I did not only the 90% death, but the uh, and this is a war. I never come out and say it so much. It's obviously a war because I'm taking the viewpoint of the people who are on the scene. But there's also EMP weapons that are set off that shut down all the electronics, all your car, phone, internet.
And that's in your short story too. So they're dealing. Your short story was kind of like a teaser of that world, right?
It is, and I wanted to isolate people. I wanted to break them up from whatever group they were in, family, church, biker gang, whatever they were, and then see how they worked from there.
There's a lot of cross currents, like everything from Walking Dead, Mad Max
Mhm.
in the vernacular. And I'm not comparing your stuff to theirs. I'm just saying that theme of post-apocalyptic breakdown of
Yeah,
society and technology and
yeah,
survival of the fittest, and sometimes the least fit, right? For ironic touch. But you're in that
could be.
genre for sure. Personally, I like your prose because it's very direct. You don't
Okay.
mess around, and I like,
Yeah.
for example, the character of Tommy in the short story. I thought that she was great. I was rooting for her.
Oh,
I
well,
saw
good.
her and felt her when I was reading it, and she's heroic in that aspect. And I'm assuming that's a theme that recurs throughout your writing, which is people are up against the wall. You're gonna have people who crack, and you have people who
Yeah.
step up to it. And sometimes the people who step up to it are the least likely, at least in your own mind and estimation, to be able to handle it.
And that's one of the great things to explore about that. Like in the full books, and I mentioned Daniela briefly. Um, she starts off in the first book as an 18-year-old, literally high school girl, and has to learn how to defend herself, and grew up poor and doesn't want to remain poor. She wants to build an empire. And you got to figure if 90% of the people are gone, that means 90% of everything is out there waiting for you to take it or take it over. And so she's a good character, but she's a little ruthless too.
Well, you need that, right? That kind of moral ambiguity makes characters interesting. And it also makes the
Yeah.
situations that you put them in as an author more interesting because you don't quite know what to expect, what aspect of the personality is going to pop out at you. And I like when the plot unfolds based on what the characters are dealing with. It's not like you're following like this outline. You throw them into there, and then they
Mhm.
got to just deal with it. And the stakes couldn't be higher.
And one thing that I like to do is to, and I did this with the short story, is to show what the characters are thinking. Because a lot of stories come up with one-dimensional characters, but I'm telling you what they're thinking in a lot of cases, and I think that adds a lot of depth to it, rather than you to from their actions just kind of figure out. Well, I would be feeling like this. Well, yeah, okay, but maybe they're a psychopath and they don't feel that way.
There's almost two extremes. You got writers who almost write like it's a screenplay, and you got absolutely
Hmm.
no idea what's going on, and the characters aren't even important. It's all about the world that got built and the plot that gets shoved down the reader's throat. So characters tend to be
Yeah,
like cutouts, two-dimensional, cliche. And then you got
yeah,
other writers who go nuts, which is you get 10 pages of what they had for breakfast and how they feel about it. That's why
mhm,
I like
yeah.
your prose because you have a nice balance, which is
Oh, thank you.
you're on point for what's unfolding. It's organic. You don't give too much backstory because you don't need it. You give just enough to set the story, And then you have that emotional depth to the characters in terms of the conflicts, their feelings about stuff. And she's put into a circumstance where she needs to do something that makes her very uncomfortable. And she actually goes about doing it. And then she has regrets about it, but then she realizes that she stepped up in ways and that's going to help her and her people survive.
And that's part of the ruthlessness there. You may have to do some things in that sort of situation. If there's no law enforcement, if there's, you just can't allow people to come in and take everything. You've got to fight back.
Absolutely. And, the genre crosses over. You got horror, you got fantasy. The vampire books, especially the original good ones, are cool this way too, because it's really essentially the fear of the stranger. When you're in survival mode, like in a post-apocalyptic, post-pandemic kind of world like that, other humans at first are going to be your enemy because you're competing for limited resources. And it's like that dark forest stuff where, you kill first because you're going to get killed if you don't go. And it's a tough setup, but it also taps into our innate human fear of the other. And this idea that we're all competing, it is kind of a dog-eat-dog world. And we all need to struggle each and every day just to get through it in our own way. And there's a catharsis when they read this kind of genre, especially this kind of crossover with science fiction, post-apocalyptic stuff. So it's relatable. And then it's got its own built-in drama, right? Which is survival on the one hand. And second, how do you stay human while you do that?
Yeah. And that's why, I don't want to have a guy see a beautiful sunset and burst into tears. I'm not going that far. But on the other hand, like in one of my newer books, I have a guy that gets into a fight with the bad guys and he throws the guy off a roof. And then later on, he's being interrogated by someone, and a good guy. He's safe at this point, but he's being interrogated by an authority, and he thinks, I was in the situation. It was me, and you were here feeding your face nice and safe. But then he thinks about, man, I just threw a guy off a roof. It kind of hits him in the face at that point.
Yeah, that dimensionality is great, right? Because you got the tension of just surviving and it's problem solving. So you got to use your head and you got to figure it out. But then you got the brutality of it, the compromise, the moral ambiguity that adds depth. And, good writers like you bring that out instead of just dismiss it as irrelevant or overdo it, to your point, where they had a tear in their eye and a knife in the guy's back.
Yeah, well, sad but true. Sorry, but
we got to do what we got to do. What got you into writing? Because your pedigree is a Marine, and then oil. Did some intelligence work, and then sounds to me like you're restless. You just want to do new stuff, and then here you are, at least part-time, sitting on your ass writing stories. So how did that happen? What got you in as a writer and as somebody who really wanted to be immersed in storytelling and then mastering this craft?
I've always read a lot, and science fiction was one of the early things. All the Asimov, all the authors, Andre Norton was a big influence there. And I always wanted to write, but it just work got in the way and everything. So it wasn't really until I retired that I really had the time to do it. And just started writing, started looking for open calls, submitted short stories, wrote books.
Good for you. I mean, that's a bold move. It's time intensive and it's hard. I mean, everyone's got writing a book on their bucket list. I'm going to write that book. When I get a chance, I'm going to write that book. But who actually does it? And then when you do try to do it, it's tough. How did you get over those early hoops? Like anytime you're learning something new, you can't help but suck. Did you have some support? Did you share your content with anybody? Did you get a professional opinion, or what'd you do?
Let me say it's a lot easier now that you have the internet and all that. Years ago, before, well, let's say in the 90s, the internet was just coming up. Not everybody had a web page. It was difficult to almost impossible back, I felt like back at that time, to get a story into anyone. It's very discouraging back then. So a couple of attempts then, and it was just no. I'm going to focus on work.
You had the bug early. Sounds like you wanted to do this for a while. It's not just like, hey, I'm retired, I'm going to write a book.
No, no, this has been a long time thing, really.
That makes sense.
But then once I had the time, uh, I actually wrote one of the books, and well, probably the first two generally. Speaking, they're kind of one long book. One of them takes place 4 hours, starts 4 hours after the first one ends. But I did that, and then I thought, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So that's when I started writing short stories, looking for calls, and it's actually difficult to get feedback on stories then, but it was just, hey, let's submit short stories, let's find all the open calls we can, let's submit shorts. So I was writing horror and crime and science fiction, some true military adventures, just a lot of different genres, just kind of almost shotgunning them out to see what worked and what. So it was really probably the wrong way to go around it, or the long way around anyway. But find out what works, find out what doesn't, and I started getting a little feedback here and there, and then got some stories submitted and printed, and
Feels
just kind
good,
of
right? Get some
pushed my way through.
validation.
Bounced my head against the door until I broke it open. Basically, the Marine Corps way to do it.
I got my oldest son is in Camp Lejeune. He's an army.
Oh, wow.
So he joined the Marine a couple years ago. We went to his boot camp graduation
Yeah.
on Paris Island. So that was cool. I wrote his drill instructor a thank you note because he did stuff that I didn't succeed at, which is kind of whip his ass into shape.
What does your son do?
He's an armorer.
Yeah, armor, okay. As in tanks or AARs?
Basic munitions like rifles, grenade launcher,
Oh, okay.
for
Gotcha.
for a unit. He's
Okay.
stationed
Good
at
stuff.
Pendleton.
Mm.
So I'm proud of him. I'm glad that the Corps can do what I couldn't. And now we're at war pretty much. So there's obviously parental concern that he gets his ass deployed, which
Yeah.
he's in a backfill unit, at least he tells me. So he goes, Pops, if I get deployed, you're fucked too. So I don't know. We'll see. But that's got its own complexity. And, we could chit chat about that. Even you're a former Marine and you've been part of defending the country. Do you have any, just off the cuff, do you have attitude about or opinions about the current conflict, America's role in the world, how things have changed since you were in the Corps?
When I was in under the Carter administration and also under Reagan. Under Carter, we didn't have any budget to do anything, basically, and that ramped up considerably under Reagan. And when Reagan pushed for things like his 600 ship Navy, I think it helped to bring the Soviet Union down.
It did.
I mean, the Soviet Union simply couldn't spend as much as we could to
Yeah, we had
maintain
better
parity.
credit than they did. And Reagan, frankly, just was a strategic genius when it came in. He rolled in intercontinental ballistic missiles, right? Intermediate range missiles into Germany at
Yeah.
the height of
Yeah.
the tensions. He's a master poker player. So I just think that the Cold War ending had a lot to do with Reagan. You could be on the fence with some of his stuff, but regarding global policy and strategy, I think he really did it.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been a timing issue because the Soviet Union had some serious cracks in its foundation for a long time, but that's when it occurred on his watch, so he can take credit for it.
Gorbachev was the right guy on the other side too. I mean,
Mhm.
it could have gone on for years, maybe even decades more. The only problem is that they just went back to where they came from with Putin. So I think
Yeah.
that's ironic and sad that they had an opportunity to step up, to westernize. Why we got Apple iPhone factories in China and not in Moscow or St. Petersburg is too
Mm.
bad. Too bad for the world and too bad for them too.
Very interesting times we live in, which is a Chinese curse, of course. May you live in interesting times.
Let's hope that we learn some of our lessons for engagement elsewhere and that the outcome is favorable not only to the US but to the world. So let's see what happens.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as far as Iran goes, uh, they're trying to build nuclear weapons. They're shouting death to America. At some point, you might want to pay attention to them.
They also have control over 20% of the world's oil. So regardless what do you think about Trump, I
Hmm.
think nabbing Maduro in Venezuela, they've got 300 billion barrels of rough crude
Yeah,
below the surface, and the Strait
yeah.
of Hormuz basically can throttle 20% of the world. So if you want control and you want to stake America's claim, then control the oil. To me, it's kind of a no brainer. And if it can work, then it works. It's just risky when you escalate like it's going on now. So let's see what happens.
It may be riskier not to.
No, I'm not disagreeing with
But
you. Well, we'll see how it shakes out. It's
you know, that's interesting though. You have a lot of people that shriek about, "Oh my God, this is a war for oil," or "That is a war for oil," or this or that or the other. Well, you know why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor? Because of oil. Because they wanted to take over Malaysia, the Dutch oil fields in Malaysia, and thought if they slapped us hard enough, we would not interfere with them.
yes. I mean, oil is money. Money is power. Is the world a safer place if you're more or less powerful, especially if you're a democracy?
Mm,
And the opposite side here is a theocratic medieval government
yeah,
hell bent on destroying our allies in democracy. So I don't know. You figure it out, right?
yeah, we shall see.
We shall see. But speaking of all that, your writing taps into the gut of what a lot of people are scared of, which is when the grid goes down and the population's decimated. How does it feel to like live in this world when you're writing? A book is hard to do. You're spending
Mm.
tens, hundreds of hours living in that world. Is it kind of a catharsis for you? Do you relate to your characters and that becomes an emotional release? Do you see people you've
Hmm.
known, people you have wanna known in your characters when you bring it to life?
I have very distinct, which I'm not going to reveal, but I have very distinct people that are most of my characters.
Yeah, you model
Um,
it, right?
yeah,
You can't help
and and mm, I write a lot of strong women. Let me put it that way.
yeah, like Tommy from the short story.
Like Tommy,
Yeah.
for example. A lot of people they have a male character and a one-dimensional male character, and then the females are just suddenly they're being intimate with this one-dimensional male character with no lead. I mean, seriously, some of these books, and that's one thing. It's like people buy this stuff. I can write better stuff than this. That's part of the impetus. Um, but so it's fun. I was talking to a friend of mine who's read the books, and I said, "Yeah, this guy was a really fun character to write because he plays off this other character so well." And the friend of mine said, yeah, when she did this, I knew what the next line was going to be. And sure enough, there it was, because I had written the character enough and convinced him that here was this character. He knew what the character was going to do in that situation. So, that's cool to build somebody like that. I mean, you're building somebody, you're imagining somebody, and you may base it on someone, but you're someone who's never been in this situation. So you're pushing them, or you're building in some new characteristics of them, which is really kind of weird. It's like, hey, I've hallucinated some people. Let me tell you about their lives.
Yeah, and guess what? This hallucination and this House of Mirrors character, do you see yourself in it? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
say
sure.
rhetorically, both the writer, but also people that you've known, and then you share what you've written with
Hmm.
them as a character.
Hmm.
Lots of times they don't know what to do, what to say. It's a good way to, either alienate people or get them excited that you care enough to bring them to life in this kind of crazy fictional way.
As a matter of fact, in my spy thriller, which is at the Pentagon right now to go through review to make sure I'm not revealing anything,
Mm.
I actually named some people. I asked them. One guy actually works the ships that go through the Strait of Hormuz. He's in maritime security. He's a Brit. Was in the British Navy and does the maritime security through Suez and Hormuz and that whole thing. And I asked his permission and name him by name, or I will when the book comes out in the acknowledgement or in the book. I mean, I'm using his real name in the book.
Yeah. So, and it's good writing based on knowing what the hell you're talking about. So whether it's a character or a circumstance, that helps, right? You didn't just Google that shit, and you're not just, lifting a character from some other story that you might have liked, but it's your own lived experience and your own relationship.
People will roast you if you get things wrong. That's yeah, that's if you're going to talk about weapons, or you're going to talk about whatever, aircraft, cars, there are experts out there and they will be all over you.
Even the personalities that fuel the narrative, right? Like be in
Mm.
that circumstance, know those people, then you're a little bit informed, then you just make the shit up, which a lot of science fiction writers do.
Yeah. Um, I'm a researcher. I talk to people. I research. I just find somebody. I'll go out on Instagram and find somebody. Hey, you've been to this city? Tell me about it. What's the humidity like? What does it feel like? I mean, I know what the humidity is, but if you get up in the mountains, what's it like? Sort of
That's
thing. So
badass. That's really cool.
I I I kind of, and my publisher is kind of like, nobody's going to remember if it rained that day. And I'm like, but I want to know. What if they're on a rooftop, running across a rooftop, and it's rained and they slip? So,
It's cool to be vested that way and reach out to the real world to reinforce your fiction. The other thing that I found is when I go down rabbit holes, I think of shit that I never would have thought of before. If I'm just writing out of my
okay.
ass, then it's a one-dimensional quick experience and then moving on. And if I dive in deeper and I do the research, I either talk to people, I look stuff up, I analyze it, I let it sit, then I think of angles I wouldn't have thought before. So even if like the weather is unexpected, or if there's a tool or a technology, or there's a historical anomaly, then you integrate that in your own writing and your own story in ways that you never anticipated. And then that gets you thinking out of the box. Because as writers, and I'm sure you feel this sometimes too, you kind of paint yourself in. You got the story going on and you're working on it. And if you get input from the
Mm.
outside and you get some surprises, sometimes you can surprise even yourself with like a plot
Yep,
twist.
that's a great point, really, because as you're researching, you find out things. I was researching a slum in Venezuela, in Caracas, called Petare, and it's I I almost want to go there, but not really, because it is dangerous and even for residents. But you find out things that if you're doing a little research, you find out things and you're like, oh, this would be really cool to throw in here, and gives it more realism for somebody that does know something about that.
Yeah, totally, totally. I use the AI bot a little bit sometimes to dive in deeper and aggregate a lot of content. So I use it as
Yeah.
a little bit like a super Google. So I kind of get to
Okay.
it and pull stuff together. I don't use it for the writing, and I think that that's not only a cheap shot, but it defeats the purpose. Like I got to sweat it out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's got to come from me. And I'm almost too selfish to use AI for my writing. I don't get away from me. I'm going to do this. But I do it for some research, especially for the scientific stuff I might be talking about,
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
historical stuff, to get some context and get some meat to it. Do you use any of that stuff for research, for fact checking, for even like editing for your work?
No, actually, Canon Publishing that I'm going through has an editor or editors that will go through. The only kind of editing I use is just whatever spell check is in Word. But as far as I want to stay so far away from that that when you Google something, I think the first answer you get is pretty much AI generated, but they offer the links to it. And so I will follow the links out because I don't trust AI enough. Like you
Yeah,
said, the historical stuff,
right.
I'm going to check the link
Yeah.
rather than just assume they've done it right. But as far as going to, I don't know what is there, Chat GPT, and I don't even know the names of the others. I just don't really want there to be any chance. Amazon, for example, asks, and when you put something on Amazon, is any of this AI
You can use
generated?
AI to generate it. So the checkbox you got to click.
Yeah, and so I'm like, no, you know,
I boldly say no too, because it's true. Because I might look shit up, but every word,
Mm,
everything I typed in the book is my own ass sitting there
yeah,
sweating it
yeah,
out. And to me, that's the joy of it too, which is the story comes through me, and part of the
mm,
catharsis of my characters going through the shit that they got to go through to get what they want or not is my own self projected into that. So I'm kind
yeah,
of living through
yeah,
them and being it, and that's beautiful. That makes writing a very immersive, albeit solitary kind of pursuit, but it's very satisfying. It's like meditation. It's like a lot of people do
that's
yoga
good.
and
Yeah,
stand on their head and do
yeah.
stuff to calm their ass down. And writing does that for me.
I can see that because you're so focused in a world, your head's down, this
Yeah,
is happening and this is happening, and yeah,
the whole
I can see
world
that.
kind of disappears, and it's very immersive. That's why a lot of people can't do it. They got that bucket list of writing the book. They sit on their ass for
Yeah.
5 minutes and they're like, "Oh, this shit's hard." You get the dopamine going. So, are you a Texas native?
I grew up mainly in Galveston, which is an island, beach resort. But my father did. It was an engineer and would do projects here and there, so we kind of moved around a little bit. We were up and down the Gulf Coast, Florida. He was from Florida, but spent 30 something years in Texas now at this point.
Yeah, the Hagan family. There's Al Hagan, the ball player. There's Al Hagan,
Yeah,
the
no relation.
satirical columnist and writer.
Yeah.
So you could fly cover.
Why don't you recognize my name?
Totally. And if you do shit that, they don't like, you just say it's the other guy. But
Uh,
I'm a fan of Texas. I grew up in Chicago, and I'm
okay.
my parents were emigres from Hungary by way of Venezuela, actually. And
Oh,
I'm an
okay.
anchor baby, technically. I was conceived down in Caracas, Venezuela in
Okay.
1963. I give away my youthful good looks. But and then my mom was pregnant, and I just barely made it. I got dropped in Chicago with their second emigration, and I lived in LA where I'm at right now, but also New York. And I've been a big fan of Texas for years. to me, it's like so iconically and foundationally American in so many ways. And I've been to Texas, and it's a trip.
Yeah.
Everything really is bigger in Texas. And in my
Mm-hmm.
short story that's actually in the anthology, I got this hustler who makes this machine that could jump universes. That's the
Yeah.
premise. And they end up building it in outside of Amarillo. I create a town called Big Slick near the Pantex nuclear factory,
Yeah.
which is people don't know that all of our nuclear warheads are manufactured and serviced in one location due northeast of Amarillo, Texas, by only 22 clicks. It's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
The Pantex, and this is public domain. It's not like, you need to kill me after hearing this. It's
Yeah.
it's Pantex. So right near Pantex, I created this kind of mythical Texas town, Big Slick, and in next to Big Slick is the lab in this abandoned ranch, and that was the seed story for my novel, which I finished last summer, and the sequel is going to take place almost entirely in Texas. So
Oh, well, good deal.
so maybe I'll
If you
hit you
need
up
anything, let
for
me
some
know.
Texas lore because just traditions and culture and language and dialogue. So I love talking to people from Texas, and I always threaten them with this follow up that as I'm finishing the sequel, I'm gonna need some insights.
Give me a call.
Yeah,
Let me know. And
and
also
your
with
action,
Texas,
your action is
yeah,
all in Texas, right? So the Hexen series is
mainly it starts off in
Louisiana too,
Texas.
right? Goes to New Orleans.
It starts off in Houston, the Houston area actually. But my character lives in East Texas, which is east of Dallas,
Yeah,
and he has to make his way. But yeah, they're in Midland, and then this latest one is in New Orleans. Some of them they go up to Kansas City, but local area.
yeah,
And one thing, let me throw this in about Texas culture. There's as you might imagine, there's a strong Hispanic influence. And so my character Daniela is actually Colombian ancestry, but her parents immigrated to the U.S., and so that allows me to bring in a lot of the Hispanic, um, like I mentioned, Santa Muerte, which is a saint that some Mexican Catholics believe in, although the Vatican is very definitely no, this is not a saint. But they do things a little differently.
that's in your short story too. Your short
Yeah.
story is like a
So
little sampler of your Hexen series,
it is.
right?
It is.
You got that in
So
there too.
I like to bring in different culture things there. So in New Orleans, of course, and I used to live in New Orleans too at one point. I bring in the Mardi Gras and some things about the Cajuns and the Creoles and that sort of thing. So it's fun to, if you don't know it already, do the research and bring in some of the local lore.
Yeah, rich in local lore. I was on
Very much
getting
so.
on eBay collecting like a whole mini library of Texas lore, Carson
Yeah.
County, and then the ghost stories of Texas, all this kind of quirky stuff because it's so rich and that kind of eccentric. One thing I've discovered is Texans love the eccentric, like things that are
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
different, right? And everyone can kind of do their own quirky Texan thing in their own Texan kind of way.
That's true. That's true. Uh And what immediately comes to mind, if you've ever heard of the art car parade, it's in Houston. They take cars and do anything to 'em, put AstroTurf on them, cover them with little Pikachu dolls or something, whatever. Yeah, we do a lot of quirky things. The Cadillac's buried up in the panhandle with the
Got
fin
iconic
sticking.
locations all over Texas that are really kind of weird and landmarky. And then you got the 72-ounce steak eating contest out of the big
Oh yeah,
steakhouse. And I got my character
that's a
actually.
real thing.
It's a real thing.
The
I had my
Yeah,
character there. Johnny does the contest, and that's one thing
yeah,
that that Ann Helt, the editor of the anthology, she cut that out too. I got a whole section of Johnny speed eating, and she's like,
Oh,
that's good
okay.
for a novel. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, but she kept the steak in there,
She
the
did.
70
She
ounce
kept
steak.
the, like, it
Yeah.
begins with the scene, and if you notice my story, it's like the sections are more or less about the same length, and the steak eating just kind of stops. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I understood. You got to like keep the word count low, but for that sequel, we're going nuts. We're gonna have a hot sauce. We have a hot sauce eating contest, and my main character like picks up the he's a northern hustler, so he like copies everybody. So he's got the big cowboy hat, snakeskin boots, and he starts talking in a fake, panhandle drawl. So even in my short story, I got a lot of Texasisms in there already, and I just want to keep blowing that up because I'm a big fan. So I'll hit you up for accuracy.
Sure.
How come you got such strong women though? In like Tommy and your other ones, was your mom a tough Texan, or what
Uh,
inspires you for strong women characters, which to your point within this genre don't always shine?
yeah. Well, that's kind of part of it because it seems to me they are such minor secondary characters in a lot of literature, especially the post-apocalyptic. My view from reading the post-apocalyptic is it's generally, hey, here's this big, fairly cardboard character, male, and oh yeah, there's some females over there, yeah. Which I just don't like that. And with Daniela, for example, especially being a Latina, they're kind of strong-willed. If you've ever had experience with, I went to school with them, worked with them. Uh, you know, you kind of don't want to mess with them a lot. So that's it. It's I hate to use this term, but I'll use it, underutilized asset.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't want the females in my characters to be just window dressing or whatever. They have a voice, they have a determination too. What I think one thing is I've always enjoyed female singers. I prefer females like Anna Nancy Wilson and Hart, for example, over eh, a male singer, even if they're singing the same thing.
yeah, I like
I
female
like women.
singers too. Yeah, I've gotten into like in my youth here. I've gotten into used to be the classic rock and blues kind of stuff. I'm a huge
Okay.
ZZ Top fan.
Oh
Talking
yeah.
about talking about Houston and all that whole scene. I love
Hmm.
Tex-Mex sound is great. But as I got older too, I mean, how many times can you hear Lagrange? So I've gotten into death metal, kind of Scandinavian orchestral stuff. And
Okay.
the reason I bring it up, aside from the dopamine booster of having the Metallica guitars and the booming drums and all that, is a lot of them have female singers. Sometimes like
Oh yeah.
some
Yeah.
like soprano singers, like Nightwish and
Hmm.
Within Temptation, Amaranth. And so you
Yeah.
got that heavy masculine testosterone oozing power in the rhythm, driving that tune. And then you got like
Hmm.
this soprano, like taking you up to heaven. And
Yeah.
like hot and sour, it's bringing in yin
It's
and yang in a way
yeah.
that
You have
just
the
just
contrast.
sometimes takes me there. I love that stuff.
Okay. Let me hit you up with the band then. It's called The Warning. They are three Latina sisters, three sisters from Mexico, and they are blowing up pretty good right now.
Cool.
Um, I've been a fan for 11 years now, and the oldest one is 26 to give you an idea of how young they are
Wow.
still. But yeah, and they are the sweetest people. I've met them 4 times at shows. Just super nice, but they take a classic rock and then they may go off into grunge or punk or heavy metal or
Yeah.
whatever. Their original viral was a cover of Enter Sandman, Metallica's Enter Sandman. They were 14, 12, and 9 years old when they did it. It's got 27 million views.
I'm gonna go check it out. That sounds like
Yeah,
totally up my alley.
absolutely. Metallica put them on their Facebook page when they did that cover, and then they invited them to remake it. Metallica came out with their Blacklist album, which
Yeah.
was the anniversary of the Black album, and they asked them, "Can you remake Enter Sandman?"
Awesome.
So check them out.
Up my alley. That just talk about like dopamine booster. To me, that's
Hmm.
awesome. You got that sexy, sultry kind of vibe with strong will too. To your point, you
With
know that
strong will.
there's some ass kicking behind that
Oh,
stuff.
and also, actually, what I listened to quite a bit when I was writing the first books in the series, they have an album called Queen of the Murder Scene, which is a concept album about a girl who is rejected and becomes stalker and then murders the guy, and then she's fighting her evil side for the rest of the album. So and you can imagine there's a lot of, it's very angsty, very very bloody and angsty, and anyway.
That sounds badass. I'll definitely check them out. Do you listen to
Mm-hmm.
music, by the way, while you write? There's like there's two types of writers who need like
Mm-hmm.
total silence and isolation, and if like a pigeon farts on the block
Yeah,
over,
yeah.
they're gonna freak out. And you got other writers who need like external stimulation, sometimes the same song over and over again
Yeah,
to get in the zone. What kind of writer are you?
I'm the music type, and that's yeah, for one reason my wife is still working and she works from home, because she's working with oil companies that are still that are in Houston, although we're up here. And so it's kind of a thing where I don't want to hear her talk in meetings. And because I have an office and it's upstairs, but we have a huge window that overlooks down into the living room. So I can still hear her talk even though she's on the other side of the house. And it's just easier. Put the headphones on. If anybody comes down the driveway, we've got alarms that go off so I can pull off the headphones and go check them out. But yeah, music like that, like Queen of the Murder Scene was like, oh yes, we're getting into a gun battle here. We're fighting, we're
That's your
shooting,
go-to, right?
we're she's doing a mag dump through the wall because she knows there are people on the other side.
Yeah, I used to be like that. I used to write, uh, this was going back at least 10, 15 years, where I always had the music going, and oftentimes I'd listen to the same tune over and over and over again, like on a
Hmm.
loop. Got me into that. And now I prefer just being isolated and silent, like 100% immersion. But
Hmm.
it goes, it comes and goes, whatever gets you there, right? So speaking of immersion and isolation, the opposite of that is having people read your shit. So how do you get the word out? Like what you got a publisher, it sounds like you got an
Yeah.
editor, so you got a team, you got professional backup that way. Do you do any kind of ads? Do you how do you get noticed? How do you get sales? How do you get the Hexen out there and your other stuff?
I have not, um, I'm kind of on the fence about ads, especially Facebook ads, but we do a lot of posting in various groups. There are a lot of groups on Facebook. There are probably north of 100 different groups about writing. Some of them just say promote your book.
I got blasted by that stuff. And then I go in there and I'll say, like, you want to be on a podcast? And usually the admin will not let it even appear.
Oh, really? Well,
Like all
y-
these other people
yeah,
are posting. Look at this.
yeah,
The raw opportunism, and then I'm mild mannered, and I'm not even trying to sell my book. I'm just saying, come on my podcast, and they're like,
yeah. You would think they would jump at that.
yeah, I would think
Um,
so, right?
Try the military thriller book club. Steve Lepper. He's a real good guy. And I can email that to you if you need.
That'd be great.
But yeah, I mean, I do that. I do the groups, and Canon Publishing also does the groups, and the authors with Canon, we help each other out. A lot of them are ex-military or retired or whatever, and we cross post each other, help each other out on that. We do conventions. I'm going to be at LibertyCon this year. And also, there in Houston, there's the Tex Indie Book Fair. So do that, set up tables. I do a Substack, which draws in some.
I saw that. I connected with you there too.
Yeah, and I do. I don't know if you look through what I do, but I do some book excerpts and some what's coming up, but I also do a lot of analysis, like the war in
I've
Iran
seen some of your stuff. That's why I was like trying to poke you live.
and
get your attitudes on that. So
um,
that's cool, and you got a pretty big subscriber base. Not bad, just even organically building up. That's good.
yeah, working on it. I'm getting there. I've had the Substack for about a year, so that's probably not bad.
That's very
But
good.
I'm trying to find out what appeals, because I do some things on weapons and I do some things on surveillance. Like, did you know if you are in a room that has Wi-Fi and someone can get close enough to pick up the Wi-Fi signal, they can determine how many people are in the room and what position they're in and things like that. That's pretty scary.
Wild stuff.
Yeah, great technology. But I look at that. I look at world affairs, China's ghost cities and Belt and Road Initiative. At the time the CIA stole the submarine, the time the CIA stole a Soviet spacecraft. True stories. All this is true. We had drones in 1960 with nuclear weapons. Drones aren't exactly a new thing.
Yeah, kind of like a V1 rocket with a nuke on it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a remote controlled radar controlled helicopter. If you can imagine trying to control a drone through radar, that's kind of mind
Some
boggling.
nuclear accidents that people don't know anything about,
Oh yeah.
in North
Yeah.
Carolina, you got nukes sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now. You got,
Off
I think you
Georgia.
got about
Yeah.
a dozen of them. Some big ones just kind of rusting down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one that gets me is the one that fell into the field was that the one in North Carolina? Where was that? And apparently it went down so deep they just can't dig down deeply enough to get it. That's kind of mind blowing right there.
Crazy, right? And then just they had a little like $5 fuse. You know what I mean? If it
Yeah.
that was like
The only thing that kept it from blowing.
From blowing, and that was an early hydrogen bomb, I think. So you're talking about some 10, 50 times Hiroshima in North Carolina.
Fairly serious stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot people don't know. People get all wrapped up in conspiracy theories, and they're just pulling straws, when just a little bit of homework and a little bit of research, oftentimes from authoritative and maybe even like less browsed sources, the truth is stranger than the fiction 99% of the time, if you just did a little homework and stop getting caught up in flat earth bullshit and just and read something.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to put stuff out there that's like, hey, this is really cool stuff, and every bit of it is true.
Yeah, it's a fun page. But your problem seems a little bit like my problem. I think my problem's worse. I do all sorts of stuff, and then I just settled on this Mookie multiverse kind of brand where I'm all over the place. But the thing about branding is, you do one thing and you do it well, and then people know you by that. But if you're a science fiction writer doing post-apocalyptic stuff, and then here's military history and Middle East strategy, people get confused. And they're like, what is this guy offering? What's his brand? Now, if you're like a Joe Rogan, you could do MMA, and the next day you have a physicist, and the next day you have Adam Carolla, and it's no big deal. But you kind of need a reputation like that prior to you doing it. You can't really establish a brand, or it's hard to establish a brand by just doing everything all the time and doing it like you feel like. I'm guilty and I just don't give a shit. I'm just gonna keep I'm just gonna keep hurling my shit out there, whatever's on my mind. But to your point, if you do want to brand and if you do want to grow a following, you just kind of you need a frame of reference for people to wrap their head around who the hell you are.
Yeah, I think this has been kind of again, throwing things against the wall and see what sticks.
Like an experiment,
and
right?
kind of kind of see what the most reads are, because Substack does do that for you. You can see who's opened it, who's read it, and maybe focus in a little more at that point. It's still early yet.
I suck at that too. I'm just being honest. I think what you're doing is the smart way to do it. I do it the dumb way. Like I'm on TikTok. I did a post advocating for the Kurdish people in the Middle East.
Okay.
Because I got a friend who's Kurdish, so I just grabbed my camera and I do like daily videos on TikTok, Instagram. So I did one just saying, let's pay attention to Kurdish people. They're up against the wall. They've been our ally in the Middle East. It's got like 650,000 views. It went apeshit viral. It's me, my bald head in my kitchen. Now, if I'd be smart, I would have just created a Kurdish channel, right? I'm the Kurdish representative. But I don't think that way. I'm just kind of like, I woke up that morning and that's what I wanted to post. And then the next morning I'm talking about science fiction or politics or whatever. So I think you need to be focused and you need to kind of look at it like a goal, like I'm going to build community. And if you don't do that, then you're all over the place. There's benefits to just like letting it loose, but trying to find some kind of compromise is probably the way to go.
Yeah, it's kind of what your goal is. Do you want to get your opinion out there, or do you want to build? Do you want to build that brand? Do you want to be that one-dimensional, or maybe that's a bad term, but do you want to be that focused individual on the Kurds or whatever?
So Al Hagan could be, depending on how it shakes out, like the kind of military strategist op-ed guy on Substack. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe Al Hagan is the quirky kind of military accident guy. I don't know, but I think you're on the right path, and I'm fucking that up, and I just don't care. I'm like, I just keep talking to people on the podcast, keep blasting. If you look at my feed too, even my podcast, I got 5 podcast shows. I do politics, I do writing, I do sci-fi fantasy. What else? I do like relationships and like self-help. And everyone's getting blasted by all this stuff, and I'm like, all right.
You're kind of like your Johnny Fazuli, is that right, Johnny?
It's no accident that he sucks at it too.
No, I meant the frenetic pace where you're going here, doing this, doing that, doing that.
I think that's why that character worked for me, because I took all my worst qualities and I dialed it up a few notches, and that's the character.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. So that's fun. I'm having a good time. At the end of the day, if I can't post 3 or 4 times on TikTok with my opinion and do at least one podcast and blast Substack, and then do like 10 tweets, then the day is incomplete.
Hey, everybody is entitled to your opinion.
Whatever gets them through. That's cool. You're awesome, Al. It's a real pleasure talking to you.
Well,
I wish you the best with the book. Is there like a pre-sale? Can we put the link in the description for that?
We are in pre-sale.
A little bit about the next book, because it's I promised people a launch party and we didn't really cover off on the next book.
Well, the next one is this is a printout. Can we see this?
Yeah.
Let me get it in the right way. There we go. Crescent City Shootout. It is a continuation. This one is actually 6 years after the apocalypse. So a lot of things have calmed down. They're establishing their empire. They are the problem with building an empire is that sooner or later you're going to run into somebody else's empire. And what they're finding is that there is the crime boss of New Orleans is building a crime empire throughout the state, and it's starting to leak over into Texas, and they're slapping it down when it comes across the border. But Taylor, who is used to be a spoiled little brat rich girl from Dallas until the apocalypse, and then that turned her attitude around 180 degrees. She's very law and order right now. She decides to go to New Orleans and cut the head off the snake. She's going to take out the crime boss right at the top, and sounds like a good idea until she's in the French Quarter trying to shoot her way out. So you've got a post-apocalyptic New Orleans, half flooded because the pumps don't work because there's no electricity during Mardi Gras. And if you've ever been to a Mardi Gras, that should be enough said right there. It's
liable to get killed even if there ain't no apocalypse.
yeah, and in the Mardi Gras is wild time in New Orleans, and throw in all these other factors, and she's trying to get back out. So anyway, I think it's a very good, a lot of run and gun, but there's also don't want to say too much. There's a favored character, let me say, that comes back, and she gets some unexpected help. But and then my spy thriller, just real quick about that, is I mentioned it's in Venezuela. I started writing this in at the end of July. It was just going to be a simple, hey, these guys are going to go into Venezuela, get a member of the opposition party out, smuggle him out. And so think about the timing here. I'm writing it in July. I'm writing it in August. What happened September 1st and 2nd? We started bombing drug boats, right? The drug smugglers. So, okay, let's write that into it. And it kind of went from there because then as they're trying to get out, then the revelation came up. Oh, well, they bombed the drug boat twice. So, okay, I got to put something else in there. Oh, and there was a civilian painted aircraft in the area. So, okay, what military aircraft has civilian paint colors? Intelligence gathering here. So it kind of built on and built on. But anyway, that's in the Pentagon. Make sure I'm not revealing classified information.
Is that
And
because you're a vet? You wanted it.
because I had a clearance, because I had a TSSCI
Okay, that's
clearance,
what I'm figuring. So they're
and
concerned just because you were on the inside and now
yeah,
you're publishing, and it's got that kind of content.
first off, it's judgment call on your side. Like post-apocalyptic, I didn't reveal anything that would be potentially, anything. In the spy thriller books, their uncle is former CIA or retired CIA, and he's got some stories about his time in Latin America, and I did counter narcotics operations in Latin America, so it's kind of like, well,
We used to
eh,
call this CTA in Chicago, which is Chicago Transit Authority, which is also
yeah,
cover thy ass. So it's CTA,
oh
right?
yeah.
That's what you're doing, right?
And I'm kind of doing a Tom Clancy thing where I like describe a Hellfire missile, for example, exactly what's happening. Is the microprocessor is doing this, it's updating X number of times a second. And
That's fun to
so,
read when you geek out like that. As long as it's within the context of the action, then
mhm,
it's
yeah,
compelling. Nobody wants to read a Wikipedia article about a Hellfire missile, but if you're getting into detail within the action,
yeah,
then you're on the edge of your
and
seat because all this tech is coming in to kick someone's ass, get someone
yeah,
freed. You're vested, right?
yeah. These guys on the boat have 12 seconds to live, type of thing. So
Adds to the dramatic
yeah,
tension when you provide that detail.
so I'm going to be interested in seeing what they say, but I talk about research, I was going to Wikipedia, and then I was going to the manufacturer's actual PDFs that are online for, oh, what does this radar do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a synthetic aperture radar, and it's got, these specs. So we'll see.
I love that. I did two things that really resonate for me. The one is I'm a news junkie. You're probably a news junkie.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing, like when I was writing the book length version of the Fazuli story, that shit just came right in. And this was not just technology and military, but cultural stuff too. Like a lot was going on last year, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that got infused into the book. Like I'm working on a chapter, a part of it, I'm hearing it and it's coming in, for characters, for scenes, all that. And the other thing is this technical detail. So a W-88, warhead powers the transfinite reality engine. So I did the research. It's a black cylinder about 6 feet tall and about 2 feet wide. It weighs 750 pounds. And again, this is public domain, but just this idea that 500 kilotons sits there looking at you adds a little gravitas to your story and what you're talking about. And that scene I'm blowing up bigger, figuratively and literally, in the Texas part of the sequel. And I'm diving in even deeper, how the thing works.
Yeah.
And the scientist is tinkering and all that. So that's fun as hell to do as a writer.
Great detail.
Yeah, I love that.
It takes a lot of time. It may take a lot of time to research that. I mean, me reading a radar manual, I may say 3 things about it, 3 sentences about it, but I think it's great detail to put in there.
Readers don't realize you could spend an entire afternoon. You can spend a day or two like diving in deep. And to your point, it ends up being a sentence, a phrase, a paragraph, but you're vested and your own lived experience is meshing up with that. And then it flows into your narrative in a way that just adds dimensionality to it. I think it's badass.
Yeah, you casually throw something in. This is a Soviet Mi-35, which is the export version of the Mi-24. And here are the differences. It's got the more horsepower engine.
And what that does is, one character can catch the other character faster or whatever. It's got implications for your story. And that's when it anchors and the two things come together. So you geek out and then your readers geek out too. And that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun. So wish you good luck with the launch.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. And then like, comment, and share, everybody. Mr. Al Hagan. Got the Hexen series, new book launch. What is it? Crescent City Shootout? Is that the...
yes.
I got that right?
That's the new
happening in Nolans. I got my ass kicked in Nolans by a girlfriend. She was mad at me. She comes out of the bathroom. I'm like, look, we're all a little bit, and she wham, and that's the one time I saw stars. I got hit. It wasn't domestic violence, and I think I deserved it. But whenever I think of New Orleans, I'm always remember Lynette coming out of that bathroom, and next thing I know, I see stars. And so talk about strong women. I've known a few strong women too.
There you go. Well, so you need to write that into a story now.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I don't think I've ever captured that moment, and it was pretty classic.
I mean, you've been there. You can describe it very richly.
Yeah. And I remember like it was yesterday, including that. When you get hit, you've probably been hit. You black out for that like 10th of a second. You take it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you kind of regain focus and consciousness. And it's like that. And I remember she was just standing there and she hit me so hard. She's like,
oh, yeah.
She hurt her hand.
Yeah, it hurts when you hit someone in the face.
Yeah,
or in the head.
And it hurts your face when somebody hits you in the face.
Well,
thanks.
Go for the soft parts if you're going to hit someone.